much you know about Ricoh. Pretty large Japanese company. I worked for them for the last 3 years. First non-American company. Tell you big change coming from Americans to Japanese. Very solid. We've been growing since 1936, non-stop. Even during the last 3 years, we were growing. And when everybody was cutting costs in sponsorship, we were renewing sponsorship deals and we were adding new sponsorship deals. Pretty solid. We are well known for our printers and photocopy machine and faxes and so forth. We also do digital cameras, and we have 2 other divisions that perhaps they are no interest to you, but they're more industrial. Okay. In Europe, primarily we focus on what we call the MFP printers. What is happening now, though, is that we are shifting. So instead of being just a manufacturing company, very successful in 180 countries, with I think it's 24 billion revenues in just last year alone, we want to focus on services. Okay, so that's something you need to remember, because when I talk to you about some of the challenges we have as a company, is how do we actually shift the mindset of our customers and the new customers from being a manufacturer company to acting and being perceived as a services company. 110,000 employees, offices in Ginza as a headquarter, but we also have a headquarter here in Europe, which is in London. And we are based in Great Portland Street, in just one new building there. Until very recently, we had all of these brands that we did actually manage. So my role was multi-brand, multi-channel, which was an IMED. When I was given the brief 3 years ago, the intention was to defocus from all of these brands and to focus primarily on the master brand, which is Ricoh. So we wanted to stop distribution and focus more on direct sales, because we wanted to own the relationship with the customer. And we wanted to own the relationship to the customer because we didn't want to ship any more products. We wanted to have a relationship which was more based on business transactions and us helping them to improve processes. Does this make sense? So we are actually shifting completely the company. Big task. It's going to take us a long time. So whatever we do in communications is going to have to be using sustainable communications platforms, i.e. communications platforms that if the budget gets cut, they still will survive. And sponsorship was one of them. That's about the company. Any questions? No? All right. About my team, so I'm responsible for corporate communications. In Ricoh, corporate communications really means brand marketing, which is advertising and sponsorship. Second is online marketing, and third is public relations and public affairs. So I'm responsible for that for Ricoh Europe. But when I am in the bar and I'm still trying to be successful after a couple of drinks, and they ask me what do you do, I always explain to people that I am in the business of telling the story better than that the competitors of the company I work for, and that's what my team does. And we have to do that in 2 ways, right? We do it by liaising directly with publications or dealing directly with communications platforms like sponsorships, but also liaising with our operating companies. So if I tell you that, for example, in France, the marketing team is 100 people and the budgets are humongous, and whatever they do has to be influenced by what the headquarters says. You know, this is a big task, and this is something that my team needs to do continuously, which is married, you know, what our marketing agencies are telling us that we should be doing, with what the board is telling us that we need to do, with what our customers say that we should be doing, and what the operating companies are doing. So that's a little bit about the Ricoh story, moving from being a manufacturing company to becoming a services company. It's going to take us a while, and you know, when we tell this story, we had to recognize that when we were kids, you had your grandparent, I don't know, I was lucky maybe, and they used to come and read to me in bed, and it was just a very nice story. Now when you tell stories, they're a bit more complicated than that, and everybody wants to be engaged, and everybody wants to be part of it. The distribution channels, as you know, they're actually pretty fragmented. You own the time you want to spend with the brand. You got social media, which is this big potato, we don't know what to do with it, but we are all doing it. We all think that it's just going to be the best thing after the sliced bread. You've got mobile technologies, and you know what's the difference between mobile. So all of that is just coming at us, and then we almost have to just test the waters as we go along, right? So that's part of the journey that we are going through as a company. So we do it all, but our audience, which is actually pretty mixed, because we've got distributors, we've got dealers, we've got analysts, we've got public as a whole, we've got our customers. They are all looking and waiting for the punchline. Okay, and this is something that is actually pretty difficult to do with just advertising, with just online marketing. Just bear with me with this storytelling. So when we think about the brand, over a number of years, I'm sure, 10,000 ways to explain it, and people talk about gut feel and agree with it. Other people talk about the fact that it's not what you said, it's about what they're saying that you are, which I agree with. At the end of the day, if I think about Ricoh as a company, for us the brand is something that is continuously changing. And you know how to actually communicate to your audience and to the audience you want to have. And things are changing, but actually they are getting better for them, and we are still relevant and we are still unique. Yeah. So that's actually perhaps the most challenging bit of the brief that I got with Ricoh, which is how do you carry the audience with you and they understand exactly what the punchline of the movie is. So this is why engagement was paramount when deciding what sort of activities in marketing we were going to undertake. That was the key thing on the decision making. What sort of tools, what sort of mechanisms to have that long-term conversation with a future audience. When I talk about engagement, I'm not talking about just social media per se. I'm not talking about, oh yes, I'm going to create a blog, or yes, I'm going to listen to you and then whatever. Yeah. I'm just talking about creative collaboration. And I'm talking about when we sign actually a deal with our right holders, by no means I will actually ever accept anyone to come and say, okay, that's what you get and that's the value. This doesn't apply. We will co-develop the product together. And I will tell you the way we did it with ATP. So this creative collaboration applies to the way we do corporate communications, but it actually applies a little bit to the ethos of the company. So it has to be part of the DNA of the company, otherwise it doesn't really work. Are you with me, guys? I'm just now coming to what we do on communication. So at the end of the day, that's the only thing we are pursuing. I'm not necessarily pursuing brand awareness, but yes, I am, okay? Because when I have to justify to the board the amount of millions we are spending, I do have to talk about all of that. But at the end of the day, I'm not focused or paranoid about awareness, I'm not paranoid about familiarity, I'm just focused around trust. And this is a very difficult parameter to measure, very, very tough. And at the moment, we're actually screening the market to very much understand what would it be the best brand survey or pulse study that will give us that energy from the market. And I don't think it's going to be one study, it's going to be a combination of a few. Right, I did talk about credibility. I'm just going to move into some of the things we did actually consider, right? So you more or less see the challenge. We were looking for an umbrella strategy. So you had operating companies, 21 of them, doing whatever they were doing. They were doing advertising, they were doing sponsorship, and they were doing anything in sponsorship. From sponsoring a football team, to horses, sponsoring Mamma Mia in the Netherlands, sponsoring daytime television when we were targeting the C-suite. There you are. They were anything, which is amazing, which is wonderful when I first joined. But we were looking for that overarching idea that was gonna, in the first 3 to 6 years, tell everyone, okay, you can do your things, but whatever you do has to feed into this overall idea, and then in a couple of years, what we are going to do is we're going to pull the rug, and whatever is hanging from this overall umbrella will stay and the rest will go. And I'll show you the way we've done it a little bit later on. Another thing we were trying to do is align with the target audience, and that was a big thing, because internally we were thinking about selling to or doing business with distributors and dealers. Now we are not interested in that. We are targeting the C-suite because the sales cycles are big. They're actually very long, and how you engage with these guys, it has to be a bit more clever than simply doing some of the things that we're doing at the time, and it did make sense. Whatever we were doing in Europe, especially in order to justify the budgets to the board, it was very important to also explain that actually, yeah, it does work here, but you know what? In the US, they can also see it. And yeah, in Asia Pacific actually works well, and the sponsorship is extendable, so we can start here, but if we ever want to do global, we can go global. So that was also another key thinking. Ideally, can we run this for a long time? And maybe these 165 days per year is just too much, but if we can do it because you are following the C-suite, if you can actually follow them per country during the year, that would be a good thinking. Standardize. That was important to reduce costs without killing local communities and without really understanding the way business is being done, because that's actually, here we think it's all brilliant, and then you come to the continent and then you think, well, actually, pretty Anglo-Saxon is not going to fly here. So there is an element of this, but we try to standardize as much as possible. Finally, is always integrate the business program. That's actually perhaps one of the key things in the whole agenda, simply because compliance and regulation today with the Bribery Act, which is going to go live in July this year. And finally, to get the employee engaged. And when you got about 20,000 employees in Europe, and when they see that you're making cuts, and they see that maybe they are not getting the bonuses, but meanwhile you keep splashing, for them to be part of the whole experience is actually quite important. So just 3 considerations. The first one was, how do we actually link the overall corporate mumbo jumbo, right? The one that we in this room and we understand because we speak the lingo, to really what at the end of the day we want to sell, and how do we actually connect all with our customers. So the first consideration is how we're going to link the corporate brand strategy to business communication. So that was one of the first pieces that we did, and we did it with Momentum, which is part of McCann Erickson. Is an agency. He's been working with us right from the beginning. I worked with them in the past in other companies, and it's just one of these agencies that I keep bringing with me. But that was a fundamental piece of what we had to do for that overall umbrella idea. Second was to think, okay, so if we're going to do a sponsorship, if we know now how we're going to do this connection, then it's going to be relevant, unique, extendable, reach, so on and so forth. What's going to be the best sponsorship opportunities and entertainment? Is it cost marketing? What is it? And finally, was sports, because then again, we did compare a little bit what Ricoh wanted to do with the sports, and this was in the middle where both parties were coming together. First were the attributes of the brand and some of the attributes of the sport, which is innovation, sustainability, and expertise. So how do we actually keep emphasizing these 3 brand attributes through the sport was important. Second was that layer of communication that talks about the brand campaign, moving ideas forward, and what we wanted to communicate, which is actually, it doesn't matter whether you're in business or in sport, alone you are nobody. You actually need to surround yourself with the right tools and the right partners, right? So even in golf, when you think there is one person, that golfer carries with her, or carries with him, a caddy, and you got a number of people that will actually be part of his team or her team. Target audience, that was paramount, so we were targeting C-suite. So there were a number of things that we knew we were going to pursue, and things we knew we didn't want to pursue. So sorry, I'm not going to talk about football. We'd love to talk about sailing, but it's difficult to prove return on investment. But I'm going to talk about tennis, which is an area where we actually saw all of these things coming together. And finally, which is quite important, is sports that carry some weight. And associations like the ATP, that is very clean, that has never had any issues with the press because of bribery or because of any other bad dealings, right? So being associated with purity is a bit corny, but with something nice, then it was also important during the decision-making process. And finally, the third consideration was, okay, so we are still figuring out what do we want to become. So how do we make the choice? Do we make an obvious choice, like rollers and time and timing? Yeah, they are already on the right. Or do we actually work really, really hard and we look deeper and we think, how are we going to actually own the right? And that's actually perhaps the most interesting piece of what we do, because this is where the whole company comes together. This is where there are no silos. This is where, and that's for you, John, this is where we work very close to the CSR department, because everything we do needs to have an element of sustainability, not just from an environment point of view. This is where we work with HR, with sales, with everyone. This is for at least a couple of weeks during the year, we are the center of attention, and during the whole year, we are at the center of many of the the meetings and the wonderful work that we do together. Does this make sense? I'm coming to the end, guys. Strategic framework, what I said at the beginning, a little bit, Julie, with what you were saying, which is today I would never, ever accept any right holders to come to me and say, look, this is a very good deal, you need to sign here, and then go out and sell it to the board, right? Doesn't work. And that was paramount on the strategy. Either we co-develop the asset together, or the deal is not that. And we actually have eliminated a couple of sponsorship deals that we had for a number of years, because when we came to the table to negotiate, it was based on price bargaining. And price bargaining in a buyer's market, it doesn't really work. Yeah? And I think when you talk about innovation, brand attributes, some of the things that you can actually do together could actually be done if you do it together, not if you've got one party on it. So that was one. Second is, again, to work really hard, to own the rights and not to be focused on the return on investment and the cost per thousand, which is dead boring, or the value of return, which everybody talks about, which is we get that from the advertising guys, and it doesn't really work. So we do tend to work on return on objectives. And finally, just to think a little bit about the assets. Where are they? You're targeting the right people, so I'm not going to go into the whole thing. This is what, and here I'm lying, because there were far more things here, but this is what the market looked like before 2007. And as I said, here we were sponsoring basketball, a disabled basketball team. I'm not sure what the Portuguese were doing. In France, every time I went there, I was discovering something new. And even today, I'm a sailor. I do actually sail. And a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine just said to me, oh, there is a place in this boat, they're looking for a trimmer, do you want to come? And I said, well, I'm not going to be able to. And then he called me later and I said, but you guys are sponsoring it. That was the thing where you came. And I thought, what? I don't think so. And I said, yeah, look at the photographs. And then it is a sponsor, Ricoh. And then, well, so they are still, every time I just visit all of the operating companies and they tell me, no, we haven't done anything. This is what we do. But, so there are a number of things that we've been cutting, and today, in 2010, I can tell you that the only pan-European asset we do have is tennis. We started 3 years ago. We were in 6 countries. We extended to 12. This year we're doing 2 more, 1 Russia. We added 1 to the Netherlands, and I'm still now working with the ATP on, okay, what are we going to do next? Because we already got all the 1,000s in Europe. I'm really trying hard to get some deals signed in Asia and in America, but the horses for courses. But that's what it looks today. This is a global asset. So we are the title sponsor of the Ricoh Women British Open. And that's really very much the end. I'm not going to go through all of this mambo jumbo. I'm going to play a video, just tell you, on that, how do we actually work the rights? We work very close with Momentum to make sure we actually tell the story at 4 levels. One is within the sponsorship, working with the partners. One is experiential, at the actual venue. Around, with our employees, and that's a little bit of microsites and web. It's a bit more comprehensive. If I play a video, I think would be better.
Ricoh's connection with sport reflects their international strength as a trustworthy team player. This is one of the main reasons behind the continual support of the ATP World Tour, providing a platform to demonstrate its expertise to a truly global audience. In 2010, Ricoh's partnership with the ATP covered no less than 12 tournaments, culminating in the season's ending Barclays ATP World Tour Finals at London's iconic O2 Arena, where the world's top 8 singles competed in front of audiences over 250,000 people at the O2, and with global TV audiences in more than 170 countries, making this the biggest and best indoor tennis tournament in the world. Seamlessly integrated into Ricoh's customer engagement program at these 12 tournaments, Ricoh hosted more than 3,300 customers, business partners and media at individual business seminars during these ATP tournaments to demonstrate its latest core offerings, from managed document services to IT services.
It's great. I've seen some other parts of Ricoh that we've not been introduced to. Print on the move, that kind of thing's been superb. Some interesting applications that we could maybe talk to our clients about.
At many of these tournaments, Ricoh further promoted its partnership with the ATP and its sponsorship of the on-court speed of serve through the Ricoh Speed Service Challenge Zone. A hugely popular initiative, giving spectators the chance to measure their own speed of serve, whilst at the same time raising funds for charity. Ricoh, proud partner of the ATP World Tour and Barclays ATP World Tour Finals. Ricoh, moving ideas forward.